Hello there, Orthopreneurs. 2024 allowed us some amazing guests on the podcast. People who helped us understand how to lower our overhead, break through a $3 million a year production goal, help us manage our teams, marketing, and even live longer, healthier lives. So it's with great joy and pride that I present to you this best of compilation from 2024. I hope you enjoy it as much as I enjoyed creating it, because I got so much out of both the guests and your feedback. So sit back, enjoy it, take some notes, and let's look forward not only to this compilation, but to some great people coming to us in 2025 as well. And I don't know if you want to jump in and talk a little bit about how you're efficient with your team, because I know your production per assistant is insane. It's off the charts. You can be efficient in treatment. And I'll let you take the question however you want to take it so we can sort of follow it from there.
From about the late 1980s, when I first started doing the JSOP program, when titanium wires became popular. And for even when I was in residency, I used to use two stainless steel wires tied together. And 3 weeks later, they would come and change the ligature and tighten them up a little bit more, so that I was filling the slot. When these wires came out, it gave me a whole new thought process in terms of I don't have to see patients every 5 or 6 weeks. I could let them go a long time. So starting in the late 80s, because of the titanium, we were going 10 or 12 weeks in between appointments, the first 2 or 3 appointments. Some people get confused and want to go 10 or 12 weeks even later. But all that does is you have the same number of appointments, but treatment still takes a long time. For me, it's always been about what do we need to do to reduce the number of appointments that each patient has. And from an article we wrote in 1992 in Clinical Impressions, Ormco used to have a quarterly newsletter. We haven't changed much. The average is 7.3 visits per patient, including everything. So every 2 years, we have somebody independent come in and randomly take finishes and find out what we've done. What has changed is we used to take about 17 months to finish cases. Now we're in the 14 and a half months for most cases, not counting class 3s or surgicals or that sort of thing. We have lots of adults. So there's 10 or 12% that you can't put in any bucket. So that has always been the key. At the same time, 3 different concepts came out in business. One of them was the principle of imbalance. We know it better maybe as the Pareto principle, but it's not just the 80-20. The second was Six Sigma, in terms of, for every million things that you do, there are only, 6 bad things that happen. And the third one was the concept of strategic intent. And so what we did is we put all of those together and put them through each of the 10 systems that I identified. I don't know if they're 20 or 10. We put them into 10 with lots of subsystems. And we put everything through those 3 systems and came out with 17 critical factors and how long should treatment take, what is the training that would, so each of these led to another subsystem. If I were to do this, we went from about 165 patients a day and 5 chair sides.
One doctor.
Just me.
160. So people, are you listening carefully to this? He just had 165 patients per day with one doctor, and you were working 22 hours a day.
I have never worked more than 6.5 hours in a day, and I never worked, when I was working full time, never more than 4 days. I've never worked a Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. But we are way more productive. And when we first started this, if we said, what is the production per staff member? Not what do they actually produce, right. But if you divided gross into how many, or production, whatever you want, into how many assistants. When we first started out, it was like $150,000 per assistant. Right. Not assistant, but just team member, except a lab tech. We are somewhere over $600,000 per member now. And that's
a clinical team member.
Yes. No. for the entire staff.
What is a wow smile? What does the wow factor mean to you?
Well, the wow smile really has several characteristics, and it's been developing with me over the last 25 plus years. And one very important part of the wow smile is that we have full incisal display, including just a little bit of tissue if possible, so that makes a person look more beautiful and younger. The other thing is, of course, the smile arc, which is talked about a lot. And having that curve of the incisal edges of the upper teeth curving similar to the lower lip on a full smile. Of course, the shape of the arch also is very, very important, and the width of the molars and having lack of buccal corridors and that wide smile, but that arch form is very, very important. The other thing that's very, very important is to have the proper inclination of the upper incisors, cuspids, bicuspids, and molars. So and that way it'll bite properly and it looks more beautiful. So those are the main characteristics as you look at a smile. I see so many flared upper incisors. I mean, even a little flaring is not aesthetic, and it's not liked by the patient. And so that upright incisor is very, very important. And so as people try to do non-extraction of crowding and class 3s and that sort of thing without the surgery, then it seems like invariably it's flared upper incisors. And so I've developed techniques, and it's particularly more easy to control that with the Pitts 21 appliance, that square appliance. And what we've been able to do with the wire, we've got that torque control in the third wire. And so, which is a NiTi wire.
By the way, social media is a monster that requires to be fed, and it is extremely time consuming. And so, like, if you have a finite amount of time and resources and capacity to dedicate to marketing at all, why would you overstep $10 to touch a penny?
Exactly.
And so for me, it's more like a priority that would be very important. And you'd want the discipline to make sure, okay, if I don't have if I don't even have a pin on the map and I don't have my reviews in place and my listings in place, like if I don't have the fundamentals done first, you don't have any business trying to go viral on TikTok. First of all, those kids aren't going to pay you. Their parents are paying you. They're not looking at TikTok. So I think you have to but at the same time, I know there's these crazy success stories of the chiropractor that blows up on social media and he's cracking everybody. And next thing you know, he has celebrities and that people are flying into his office in San Diego, California.
Dr. Miami is a great example, right?
Yeah.
Of somebody who blew up, but back on the days of Instagram, he started with Instagram, and I can't stand watching him. He's crazy. But
and the Dr. Pimple Poppers. I mean, there's lots of examples of people that have used social media successfully and then, brokered a deal on TV and all this stuff. But those are, they're the statistical outliers. Like to me, if you don't have the discipline to have the fundamentals, if you don't have a website, we have a problem. If you don't have at least a little bit of social presence, it's like people have to know that you're open for business. Right. They have to find you. They have to be able to navigate to you. Like, let's start with that before we add, the cherry and the whipped cream on top of marketing efforts, for sure. There's the specific strategy or tactic that is social media. But what you are also saying is like, how does somebody differentiate themselves? Because to be known as the guy or the girl, right? To be known as, like, my husband got his LASIK done by the doctor that did the LASIK for The Rock. Like, so it's like, right? And he does all of the hockey players, the Miami Heat players, like it's the man, the guy, right? How do you become that? How does one LASIK surgeon differentiate from the other surgeons? How does one orthodontist differentiate from other orthodontists when you're literally in the same building or across the street from each other? And so, like, even before I have a doer do anything, I want to make sure that I have clarity on like what our unique differentiator is. Like, who are we to people that it feels unlike anyone else? Like, there has to be a level of conversation of who we are in someone's life, what problems we're solving for them, the manner in which we do it that's a little bit different than the person across the street from us. Like, these are the things that, like, as a strategic marketing expert, we want to extract. And then once we're extracting that, then I'm like, okay, social media crew or team of one, these are the specific things I want to highlight in our messaging when we do social media. So it's banking in the right brand credit than just doing social media for the hell of it, right? I don't want
which a lot of people are doing.
Yeah, and it's because they're checking something off a list.
Hey, it's trending now. Hey everybody, tickets for Summit 2025 are on sale now. Take a listen to what some of the attendees from Summit 2024 had to say.
This is one of the most unique, most impactful meetings that you can go to as an orthodontist.
It has everything compared to other meetings: entertainment, the content in the meeting, the speakers, the food.
I learned a lot. It helps the practice, so it really kind of checks all the boxes.
You hope to get something out of it that is going to pay dividends for years to come.
Definitely return on your investment.
We take back a lot to our office.
You get information that you probably don't get easily at any other meeting.
The idea that you're asking me about fitness is funny to me. Some of my best friends are Trevor Nichols or Chris Feldman, who just casually runs 12 miles every day, or Ben Fishbein, who is jacked. For me to be talking about this like that, you're asking the wrong guy. But you're right. My wife is really into fitness. That's helpful. But as life got busier, what I knew is that I wasn't going to let the fitness part of my life slip. And for any of those people who have small kids, you know how hard it can be. Our life is kind of a mess. And the idea for me of getting done with work, I got to go home and take care of those babies and see the kids. So anything after work just not going to happen. We start seeing patients at 7:30. So that only leaves before work for me to actually get a workout in, which means I wake up at 4 a.m. So I wake up at 4. People freak out when I tell them that. I'm not a morning person. I don't like that. That's not like a fun thing for me. But if it's going to be important in my life, I have to make it a part of my everyday routine. And so that's what I do. I don't wake up in the morning and decide, am I going to brush my teeth? Of course I'm going to brush my teeth. So I had to mentally switch it, right? Because working out is an easy thing to be like, I'm fine. I'm not going to do that. You're not going to say, I'm not going to brush my teeth today. So now working out has become like that. Now, that doesn't mean I'm doing an hour and a half every day. I mean, love you, Trevor Nichols, and all of you people who do that. That's not me, right? But I'm going to be intentionally active or do something fitness-wise every single day and just be intentional about it. It can be 20 minutes. I see a trainer a couple times a week. Sometimes I go to his gym. Sometimes we do it on Zoom or FaceTime or whatever. But I wake up at 4. I have my coffee. I have like the only piece of quiet that I get the whole day. I'm working out by 5. I'm in the shower and at the office by 6:30. I have an hour from 6:30 to 7:30 to either do my digital stuff or catch up with my practice director, or just prep myself mentally to see the patients I'm going to see. And then we're ready to go. And when the day's over, I'm tired, but I get to go home and put on the next show for my kids. And the kids are in bed by 7:30. And my wife and I get about an hour to just be adults together. And then I'm in bed by 9 or 9:30. And we just kind of do the same thing all over again. But being really intentional with every chunk of my time, you have to be, because otherwise it's so easy for that just not to happen.
Can you just define, when we talk about 100% digital practice, what does that mean to you?
Yeah. So for me, it means a few things. On kind of the very basic side, it means that every appliance kind of system or category that you're using in your practice, whether it's aligners, brackets, or appliances, go through some digital workflow to be produced. So aligners, obviously, something like 3D printed brackets or digital IDB, and of course 3D printed metal sintered appliances. So that would be like kind of the genre of appliances that we're talking about here. But I love how you frame that up, because for me, it's not just about having the computer or the scanner, because you can actually have a full digital workflow, but not actually have yet a digital mindset. Meaning digital workflow should be more about just having the fancy bells and whistles, right? It should be about changing how you practice and the kind of care you're able to offer your patients through some level of customization that's offered through that digital experience, and how you can actually change your practice also in terms of the doctor and the patient experience, in terms of efficiency and kind of ease of access, et cetera. And that requires a change in mindset. Like, it's very possible that you could have actually an aligner practice, let's just use that as an example, and maybe still see your patients every 4 weeks, because you believe that it's important to see your patients every 4 weeks, and you never change that part of your mindset, even though you have a digital workflow. Whereas, for instance, in our practice, we use dental monitoring, and there's other, great remote monitoring systems out there. That just happens to be the one that we use because we started back in 2018, and it was the only one, and still really works well in our hands. So we've been using that, and so we see our patients, every few months, and are very comfortable giving them many aligners. Why? Because we have that digital workflow. We have that mindset where we understand this is a pre-programmed, customized appliance. We don't need to see patients perhaps in the same way that we did before. So that would be an example of changing your mindset about how you're seeing the patient, how you think about that level of customization and what it does.
Those 5 things are the things that tripled our practice in 3 years.
Wow.
And
can you say that one more time? Repeat those 3 things. I want everybody to hear this very clearly.
So, generate new patient interest, drive leads, easy to understand. We think about that all the time if you like marketing. Schedule exams. So, taking people who are interested and turning them into an appointment in the PMS or the practice management system. Get them to show up, get a contract signed or case acceptance. And if they don't sign a contract, recall pending and OBS management. Like, those are the things that I spent almost my entire time focused on. When we think about generating new patient interest, we might go to what we traditionally think of as marketing. So like paid ads, maybe organic digital marketing, like a website, SEO, like getting people to click when they search. Other traditional marketing things like signage at local schools, review generation, professional referrals, current patient referrals, like creating a good vibe in the office that people love and want to refer into. What's interesting, though, is as we build that list of things that we think of as marketing, at the top of the list are things that we traditionally pay other people for. So like most people pay someone else to build them a website, do their SEO, run paid ads. But as we go down the list and we start thinking about traditional marketing, well, someone else can make the copy for you. They can, design the banner for you, but you have to be the one building the relationships in order to have the opportunity to market at a school, for instance. Review generation is much more effective if your team is really good at it. That takes training and operations. Professional referrals, like great, we can have the ideas. Like the ideas are a dime a dozen for how to engage with general dentists, but the execution is the hard part, and actually following through and making those things happen. And the list goes on. But what I realized very quickly was the way that I saw other people talking about marketing in orthodontics was not the full picture. It was much more heavily weighted toward what we did with the leads, or what our team did in terms of marketing that generated that new patient interest. The heavier weight on operations was like one thing I learned like really quickly was if we wanted to grow and we didn't want to just blow out our marketing budget, we had to be really efficient with the opportunities that we were generating. And that comes to scheduling exams. It's like, okay, if we want to schedule as many exams from the interest that we're generating, what do we need to do? Well, we know that we need to be fast. We know that we need like all the stuff I mentioned before. And that's primarily what Lead Sigma handles. The other thing that we realized, this was really, I always, I guess, intuitively understood this managing the practice, was we're like, we answer every call. Like we answer every single call. Because when I did the math, it's like, okay, about 7.5% of our calls are new patients. And if that's the case, every single one of these calls is worth $300. And so it's like, we're never missing a call. And when we started getting connected to our clients' phones with Lead Sigma, we realized that was a much bigger problem that I thought existed.
Because you thought someone's spending enough money to get a lead, they're going to answer the call.
It's pretty wild. And like everyone knows, if someone calls you, that's a much better lead, or they're a lot more likely to convert into a start than someone who fills out a Facebook form.
The truth is, when before Envista, it was all Ormco. And Ormco had a product called Clear Guide. I don't know if any of you guys remember this. It was a life into clear aligners. This is going back 10 years ago almost. They tried that, and that's when they felt, oh, maybe we should have something like Invisalign. And they didn't do very well because it was such a small project. The lithos scanner, it was all combined, and I was very invested in it. And it dropped out of like their portfolio of products. Now, obviously, just like most people, I started using Invisalign and tried complex cases. And somewhere in 2016, I also started to try Insignia, and that was the digital braces with IDB from Ormco. And we were doing quite a decent number of them, and I started liking the product. And which I liked about it was a little bit more simplistic version than the Sure Smile software. Now, I do like computers, but at the same time, the amount of information on Insignia for an orthodontist like myself to decipher and then spend time on it. And I started telling them, look, it needs to be a little bit more simpler because I can see this is a good product. But if you want to get it out there to everybody, you need to start making it a little bit more simpler. And of course, that product continued to evolve. And 2017, if I'm not wrong, the Australian digital rep called me and saying, oh, I want to bring a few people to come meet you. When can we meet? And we figured out a date and time. There were 5 of them who came, and I invited them home for dinner because that was the only time I could connect with them. It happened to be a scientist or a marketing person and a product specialist and the digital person and potentially somebody who's going to put it all together. They came and said, well, we are trying to get into the clear aligner market and to compete with the other company. Would you like to be in the trial group? And knowing what they did with Clear Guide, I was a little bit skeptical because they may take up all my time and resources and disappear. And I would be left with these patients. So I said, what if this product didn't work and whatnot? And they were very appreciative of my concerns. And they said, look, we're only going with 5 doctors or 6 doctors. And if the product doesn't work, we'll pay for you to jump back to the other clear aligner company and we'll pay for all of that, which I thought was a good deal because I'm not going to put my patients down and then left to pick up all the pieces. And with that aside, we started this group and they were all Australian doctors. And then they started doing this clear aligner product. So it was manually made. Every single aligner was manually trimmed and focused. But the best part about that is, and in some ways good part for me and not so for Spark themselves, is out of the 5 doctors, I was the only one who was submitting cases. To the point they wanted 30 or 50 cases. I did 28 or 29 of them. And it required a lot of paperwork, a lot of record collection, consent. And when it eventually came to 30, they said, oh, look, we want to do more because I don't think it's going to be enough for us to do FDA.
and they increased the number. Again, I contributed quite a bit. But what made me do that was the amount of effort. The team did that for me. They were based in Bria. And the feedback I would give, I say, look, we need this, we need that. It all happened within 24 hours. And I was just gobsmacked about, where are these people? I mean, these people should be working on Insignia. They should be working on other products. But the amount of changes one would say, it's not like a 3-month wait. It'll happen in 24, 48 hours. Saying, I want this, no problem, we can do that. We want a button cut out, no problem, we can do that. And this involved legal team, which also didn't want to go through and get into patents and dramas. So I was inspired. So by the time FDA paperwork came, I would say 95 or 98%, whatever the number is, all came from my practice. But what I told them is, I'm surprised why the other 4 are not doing. Maybe I should share them my progress photos and tell them this does work and the team does do a good job. And then they said, oh, well, we didn't think of that. Maybe they were thrown out by the whole paperwork, and this paperwork was pretty hectic. And when the FDA paperwork did come through, they realized that if they wanted to go and launch into another country or another, they then chose to go to New Zealand. And they only had me to look up to for them to show clinical stuff, why some things were working better than the other company. And a lot of times they themselves didn't know what was helping them. And I would tell them, this is why your product is doing better. And because the software as we see now was developed over this period of 4 to 5 years, I have an in-depth knowledge of why certain features are there now and why certain features are not there. And a lot of that was just made to make sure it's simple. To give you an idea, I did a presentation to my college, my residency senior by 2 years, and she has been using the other product for all these years. And she said, oh, look, everybody's talking about this. I've not jumped into it. Can you spend 20 minutes or so and I'll pay you if you show me? And I said, no, let's do this for free. We know each other. And I'm spending 20 minutes. And within the first 5 or 10 minutes, she tells me, it's very simple. And I said, that's what's meant to be. It's extremely simple for anybody with no computer knowledge to be able to come and look at 10 icons or a few things, or they can spend as much as they want, but they don't have to get the best outcome. And that's the whole idea of the software that has been improved. And so I do feel proud that where we are now is through that hard work. But of course, credit doesn't go to just me, the team, and some of them not with us anymore in that same team. But I can see the effort that has gone in. And to really show this as well, Envista's CEO, Amir Agday, he was not yet announced to be the CEO of Envista to the share market, but he had made a swift visit. He flew in all the way from Europe to see and spend time with me in the practice for 6 hours before Wall Street found out that he was going to be the CEO. So it helps when a CEO of a corporation understands that, okay, this product is going to be great. And I said to him, in 4 to 5 years' time, Spark will make you more money than the rest of your Envista products combined. He said, no. Our implants business is pretty good. And I caught up with him at the summit. He's like, oh, you're right. This year is going to be doing far higher than what I anticipated. We're that close. So it's kind of very nice to know that I had the confidence on the product more than anybody else because I worked with it every single day. And I am very proud of it.
So, I mean, first I tell everyone, prioritize your gut health. If you're doing all the things and you're already in a good place, then great. It's going to be a lot easier to optimize your hormones, and it can actually be really simple. But work on the gut first. If you have any underlying gut issues, there's no shortcut. Like the older you get, the more stuff gets out of balance, the more inflammation you have, the harder it gets. So just start there, work with someone who can help you through any symptoms. Don't lie to yourself about that. And then food, I think, start with the basics before you go down any major rabbit holes of like specific foods to avoid or extreme diets. I like to talk about the three basics: protein, fat, and fiber. So emphasize when you look at your plate and what you're eating, you're not just eating an apple, you're not just eating a stick of celery, you're eating, protein, healthy fats, and fiber. Those are all very satisfying. So they promote satiety and satisfaction after eating. They also help stabilize the blood sugar, which tends to be a bigger problem as we get older. We become more insulin resistant. So that's where like a lot of people notice they can't tolerate alcohol or sugar like they used to be able to. And that's why. So eating that way on a 80-20 rule type basis can help stabilize the blood sugar, which also in turn impacts your other hormones, your cortisol, your thyroid, all of those. Let's see, exercise. I think along the lines of testosterone, women are afraid of, the many that I speak to are afraid of resistance training, but I would challenge you to lift heavy 2 to 3 times a week, especially if you're like in your 40s. You're going to start losing that lean body mass like nobody's business if you don't make an effort to specifically counteract it. I love if you do cardio, but you do not need to kill yourself doing cardio. It's not glamorous, but you can walk, you can cycle, you can swim, and you can do, very low intensity cardio will still benefit, body fat and weight management over HIIT every day. You don't need high intensity every single day.
No.
I love sprinting. I love high intensity, but do it like once a week. Because if your hormones are unstable, you're going to crash and burn, and then you'll gain weight and feel worse.
2024 was a great year for us in terms of podcast guests, and I'm looking forward to even better in 2025. So from the bottom of my heart, I want to say thank you to each and every one of you for listening. Your comments and feedback mean the world to me, so keep them coming. And let's all look forward together to 2025 being a great year for all of us, not just in practice and in life, but also some great educational opportunities through our podcast. Have a great day. And again, thank you for being a part of the Orthopreneurs family.